Hello, and welcome to Cinematic History for Sleep. Tonight, we are traveling gently into the past, to the everyday world of ancient Rome. Before we begin, I'd like to ask something simple. If you enjoy calm historical storytelling, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel. It helps this quiet space continue to grow. And if you'd like, tell me in the comments. Where in the world are you listening from tonight? And what time is it for you right now? Now, let's slow down together and step softly into history. Ancient Rome was not experienced as an empire. For most people, it was simply the world they woke up in each morning. Stone streets, low voices, familiar routines. Rome was not fast. It was structured. Time moved differently. Days followed predictable rhythms, shaped by sunlight, work, and rest. There was no rush to arrive somewhere else. Life unfolded where it already was. Rome was a city of order, not because it was perfect, but because it was understood. People knew their place in the world. This knowledge brought calm. To understand daily life in ancient Rome, we must set aside images of emperors and battles. Most Romans were not powerful. They were workers, shopkeepers, families, slaves, freedmen. Their concerns were ordinary: food, shelter, safety, routine. Rome was loud in some places, quiet in others. It breathed. The Roman day began with light. Not with clocks, but with the sun. Morning carried purpose. Afternoon slowed. Evening softened. Night brought rest. This rhythm shaped everything. Roman architecture was practical. Buildings were meant to be lived in, walked through, touched. Stone absorbed sound. Walls created shade. Courtyards allowed air to move. The city was designed to support daily life, not overwhelm it. The morning in ancient Rome did not begin with sound. It began with light. Not sudden, not demanding, but gradual. The first light appeared quietly, touching the highest points of the city before reaching the streets below. Roof lines softened. Stone walls warmed slightly. Shadows shifted without urgency. Rome woke slowly. There were no alarm clocks, no mechanical signals. Time was felt, not measured. The sun defined the beginning of the day, just as it would define its end. Ancient Rome was built to receive daylight. Streets followed practical lines. Courtyards opened inward. Windows were small but intentional. The city was dense but not sealed. As light reached deeper into the city, it revealed familiar forms. Stone steps worn smooth by generations. Doorways darkened by use. Walls bearing quiet marks of daily life. This light was not dramatic. It was reassuring. It returned every morning, unchanged. This reliability mattered. The Roman morning did not rush. There was work to be done, yes, but there was no pressure to begin immediately. The pace was set by daylight and habit, not by schedules. People woke when the light reached them. Those near open courtyards felt it first. Those in crowded insulae felt it later. The city did not wake at once. It unfolded. This staggered awakening created calm. Noise did not arrive all at once. Movement spread gradually. The city breathed into consciousness. In the earliest moments of morning, Rome was unusually quiet. Night sounds had faded. Day sounds had not yet begun. There was a brief stillness, a pause between worlds. This pause was familiar. It belonged to everyone. Even in a city of hundreds of thousands, silence had its place. This silence allowed the mind to settle. The body adjusted. Awareness returned gently. Romans did not question the return of morning. They expected it. This expectation provided comfort. When the world behaves predictably, anxiety lessens. Morning returned. Light returned. Life resumed. This repetition stabilized the mind. It allowed people to focus on small concerns rather than large uncertainties. Breakfast, work, family, not the fate of the world. In ancient Rome, time was not negotiated. You could not decide to wake earlier or later in the modern sense. The sun decided. This absence of choice reduced stress. There was no guilt attached to waking late, no pressure to optimize. You woke when light reached you. This natural regulation created balance. Morning light touched everyone. The wealthy felt it through marble halls. The poor felt it through thin walls. Status did not change the sun. This shared experience created a subtle sense of unity. Everyone entered the day together, even if their lives differed greatly. For a brief moment, all were simply awake. Before footsteps echoed, before carts moved, before voices rose, Rome existed as structure. Streets, walls, roofs. The city waited. This waiting felt patient, not empty. It had happened before. It would happen again. As light increased, awareness returned. Thoughts formed slowly. Plans took shape. There was no immediate demand. Morning allowed adjustment. This transition mattered. It protected the mind from shock. Light did more than illuminate. It organized. It separated night from day, rest from effort, stillness from motion. This organization created clarity. Clarity reduces fear. Rome did not resist morning. It accepted it. Doors remained closed for a while. Shutters opened gradually. Movement increased naturally. There was no announcement, no signal, just continuation. Morning was not exciting. It was stabilizing. That stability allowed life to continue. Day after day. Year after year. As the first light settled fully over the city, ancient Rome was awake. Not hurried, not alert, simply present. The day had begun, as it always did, quietly, reliably, without effort. And within this calm beginning, daily life slowly resumed. Morning in ancient Rome did not unfold the same way for everyone. The city shared the same light, but homes shaped how that light was received. Where you lived determined how you woke, what you heard, what you felt, and how the day began. Roman homes were not simply shelters. They were environments that guided daily rhythm. Roman domestic life existed in two primary forms: the domus, private houses belonging to the wealthy, and the insulae, apartment buildings housing the majority of the population. Both were Roman. Both were familiar. Yet they created very different mornings. In a domus, morning arrived quietly. These homes were built inward, organized around open courtyards. Light entered gently from above. The atrium collected the morning sky. The impluvium reflected it. Air moved slowly. Sound softened against stone walls. Those who slept in private rooms did not wake to the city. They woke to space. The domus was structured. Rooms followed purpose. Sleeping spaces remained calm in the early morning. Movement was controlled. Servants rose first. They prepared the house before the family emerged. This created a sense of readiness. When the household head woke, the home already felt active but quiet. This order reduced chaos. It allowed the morning to feel smooth. The air was cool. Stone held the night's temperature. Light increased gradually. Voices were low. No one rushed. The day approached rather than intruded. This environment protected the mind from sudden stimulation. In contrast, mornings in the insulae were communal. These buildings were tall, crowded, and dense. Families lived close together. Light entered unevenly. Those near windows felt it first. Those deeper inside felt it later. Sound arrived early. Footsteps above. Voices below. Movement in shared stairways. The day announced itself. In the insulae, privacy was limited. People woke aware of others. This created a different rhythm. Less isolation. More connection. Noise did not feel intrusive. It was expected. It confirmed that life was continuing around you. This awareness reduced loneliness. Insulae residents woke with intention. There was less preparation done by others. Each household managed itself. Fire needed tending. Food needed sourcing. Work awaited early. This created alertness, but not panic. Routine replaced urgency. Where you woke shaped how you felt. Domus mornings encouraged calm authority. Insulae mornings encouraged adaptability. Neither was inherently better. Each prepared the mind for its social role. This alignment reduced internal conflict. People lived as expected of them. Light was never harsh. Windows were small. Curtains filtered brightness. Shadows remained. This softness mattered. Harsh light stimulates. Soft light calms. Roman homes were naturally sleep-friendly environments. Mornings followed habit. Habit reduces decision-making. Reduced decisions conserve mental energy. Romans did not choose how to begin the day. They followed known patterns. This predictability stabilized emotions. Children woke gradually. They learned rhythm early. Morning was not a surprise. It was a familiar transition. This early exposure to routine shaped emotional regulation. Silence did not mean emptiness. It meant control. Sound existed but was contained. Walls absorbed noise. Courtyards softened echoes. This architectural calm supported mental calm. Roman homes were refugees, not from danger, but from unpredictability. Inside, life made sense. Outside, the city waited. This separation mattered. It allowed psychological preparation before entering public space. There was always a pause, a moment before stepping out. Shoes adjusted, cloaks arranged, breath taken. This pause centered the individual. It marked transition. As morning settled fully inside Roman homes, private life gently prepared itself for public life. No rush, no disruption, just continuity. Homes released their inhabitants slowly, sending them into the day ready, grounded, and awake. Morning preparation in ancient Rome was simple, measured, and familiar. It did not aim for perfection. It aimed for readiness. There was no expectation to transform oneself in the morning, only to become presentable enough to enter the day. This simplicity reduced pressure. Water played a central role in Roman life, even in the early hours. Most homes did not have running water inside private rooms, but water was never far away. It was stored, carried, and shared. Morning washing was modest. Hands were cleaned, faces refreshed, sometimes feet rinsed. This was not ritualized vanity. It was practical care. Water removed the night, both physically and symbolically. Morning water was often cool. It brought alertness without shock. The body adjusted naturally. There was no rush to fully awaken the senses. Gentle stimulation was enough. This approach protected the nervous system. Roman clothing was prepared in advance. Garments were simple in construction but meaningful in form. The tunic was common across classes, adjusted in quality rather than shape. Putting on clothing was not a choice-driven activity. It followed habit. This reduced mental effort. Clothing signaled role and purpose. Once dressed, the individual knew who they were for the day. Mirrors were rare and imperfect. Self-scrutiny was limited. People did not evaluate themselves constantly. This absence of visual feedback reduced self-consciousness. Appearance mattered, but not excessively. Order mattered more than detail. Hair was arranged simply. Combs were used. Beards were trimmed when necessary. Grooming focused on maintenance, not transformation. There was no urgency to impress. Social expectations were known and stable. This stability reduced anxiety. Morning preparation was quiet. Tools were simple. Movements were familiar. There was little conversation. Silence supported concentration. The day was approached thoughtfully. Repeating the same preparation each morning created grounding. The body recognized the sequence. The mind followed. Routine eliminated uncertainty. Uncertainty creates tension. Routine releases it. Romans did not aim to perfect themselves before leaving home. They aimed to be ready enough. This mindset mattered. Perfection delays action. Readiness allows movement. This balance preserved energy. As preparation ended, attention shifted outward. The home released its hold. The body felt awake. The mind felt oriented. There was no sharp boundary, just a gentle transition. Morning hygiene and preparation in ancient Rome were acts of alignment. The body aligned with the day. The mind aligned with routine. The individual aligned with their role. Nothing dramatic occurred, and nothing needed to. Within these small, repeated actions, Romans prepared themselves calmly to step into the life waiting outside. Morning in ancient Rome was shaped not only by light and routine, but by quiet, often unseen labor. Slaves were present in nearly every part of Roman life. Not always visible, not always acknowledged, yet essential to the functioning of households and the city itself. Their work began early. In many homes, especially in the domus, slaves were the first to wake. They tended fires, carried water, prepared spaces. These actions happened before the household became active. This early movement allowed the rest of the home to wake calmly. Order depended on preparation. Slaves did not announce their work. Their presence was meant to be unobtrusive. Silence was part of the expectation. This quiet labor created stability. Noise would have disrupted the morning rhythm. Roman households relied on enslaved labor for routine tasks. This reliance was normalized. It was rarely questioned. From a modern perspective, this reality is uncomfortable. But for Romans, it was embedded into social structure. Understanding this context matters. It prevents simplification. Most morning interactions were practical, not emotional. Tasks were known. Roles were fixed. This predictability reduced conflict. In a system built on hierarchy, routine replaced negotiation. Not all enslaved people worked in private homes. Some worked in workshops, some in markets, some in public facilities. Their mornings followed similar patterns: early movement, practical focus, limited pause. As slaves moved through streets carrying water, tools, or goods, the city's infrastructure came alive. These movements were part of Rome's rhythm, often unnoticed, always necessary. Roman society depended on labor remaining in the background. This invisibility allowed others to focus on public life. The system functioned because it was accepted. Acceptance does not equal fairness, but it explains stability. For enslaved individuals, mornings did not involve choice. The day was assigned. This lack of autonomy defined their experience. Acknowledging this does not disrupt the calm tone. It deepens understanding. The Roman morning unfolded smoothly because of labor that began before it was seen. Slaves shaped the rhythm of the day through quiet action. Their presence was constant. Their recognition was limited. And yet, without them, the calm order of Roman mornings would not have existed. Breakfast in ancient Rome was not a social event. It was not elaborate. It was functional. The morning meal, known as the ientaculum, served a simple purpose: to provide enough energy to begin the day. Nothing more was expected. This modesty shaped the Roman relationship with food in the early hours. Unlike later meals, breakfast carried no ritual. It was eaten quickly, often alone, sometimes standing. There was no gathering around a table, no extended conversation. Food in the morning was about readiness, not pleasure. This simplicity reduced distraction. The most common element of ientaculum was bread. Bread was reliable. It stored well. It sustained energy. Often it was accompanied by olives, cheese, or fruit. In wealthier homes, honey or eggs might appear. In poorer households, bread alone was enough. The difference lay in variety, not in tension. Social class shaped breakfast subtly. The wealthy had access to more options. The poor relied on consistency. Yet breakfast remained small across classes. Large meals belonged later in the day. Morning food was light by design. This prevented heaviness. Breakfast was eaten without hurry, but also without lingering. It existed between waking and work. This in-between quality mattered. It eased the body into movement. Light meals support alertness. Romans understood this intuitively. Heavy food slowed the body. Light food supported activity. This understanding came from experience, not theory. The body learned what it needed. Many Romans ate breakfast alone. Others shared it briefly with family or co-workers. Neither was unusual. Breakfast was flexible. This flexibility reduced social pressure. There was no correct way to eat. Breakfast did not interrupt the morning rhythm. It followed it. Eating blended into preparation. No pause was required. This integration preserved calm. Food was eaten with the hands or simple utensils. No special arrangement was needed. Bread required no preparation. This efficiency mattered in busy households. Once finished, breakfast left no trace. Dishes were cleared. Movement continued. The day progressed. There was no transition ceremony. Breakfast in ancient Rome was not about pleasure. It was about support. Support for the body. Support for routine. Support for the day ahead. Within this modest meal, Romans nourished themselves quietly and stepped forward into their daily lives. Leaving the home in ancient Rome was not abrupt. It was a gradual release. Doors did not open all at once. Streets did not fill suddenly. The city revealed itself in stages. This gradual emergence softened the transition from private life to public space. Roman homes marked a clear boundary between inside and outside. Crossing that boundary mattered. A doorway was not just an opening, it was a transition point. People paused briefly before stepping out. Cloaks were adjusted, sandals checked, breath taken. This pause centered the body. It prepared the mind for the shared world beyond the walls. Early morning streets were calm. Few people moved at first. Footsteps echoed lightly against stone. The sound was gentle, not crowded. Those who walked early often did so with purpose. Workers, messengers, vendors preparing for the day. Movement was deliberate. No one hurried. Many shops were part of homes. The front opened onto the street. Shutters lifted slowly. Tools were arranged. Goods placed within reach. There was no announcement. The act of opening was enough. This quiet preparation created a sense of readiness rather than urgency. Roman streets belonged to everyone. There was no sharp division between pedestrian and workspace. People navigated carefully. They were aware of one another. This awareness slowed movement. Slowness reduced conflict. As the morning progressed, sound increased. Not abruptly, gradually. Voices appeared at a distance. Animals moved through streets. Wheels turned slowly. The city spoke softly. These sounds were familiar. They reassured rather than startled. There were no engines, no constant mechanical noise. This absence mattered. It allowed subtle sounds to be noticed. A conversation, a step, a door closing. The city felt alive, but not overwhelming. People moved with awareness of status. Greetings were brief. Eye contact mattered. Roles were understood without explanation. This clarity reduced social uncertainty. Uncertainty creates tension. Clarity releases it. For many Romans, the street was not intimidating. It was familiar. Children played. Neighbors passed. Vendors returned daily. The street extended domestic life outward. This continuity reduced psychological strain. As more doors opened, the city gained rhythm. Still calm, still measured. There was no single moment when Rome started. It simply continued. This continuity created stability. Stepping into the streets of ancient Rome was not a shock. It was a gentle unfolding. Private life gave way to shared space. Movement increased without pressure. Sound grew without chaos. The city welcomed its people calmly, inviting them into a day already waiting. Morning in ancient Rome was defined as much by sound as by sight. But these sounds were not overwhelming. They arrived slowly, layer by layer, as the city eased itself awake. Silence did not disappear. It softened. The earliest sounds were subtle: footsteps against stone, a door closing gently, fabric moving as people adjusted clothing. These sounds carried space around them. They did not compete, they coexisted. This spacing mattered. It allowed the mind to register sound without stress. Voices appeared next. Not loud, not commanding. Short exchanges, greetings, instructions spoken calmly. There was no need to project. The city was still close. People stood near one another. This proximity reduced the need for volume. Animals were present. Dogs moved freely. Donkeys carried loads. Birds filled open spaces with quiet movement. These sounds blended naturally into the environment. They did not dominate. They reminded listeners that Rome was not separate from nature. As work began, tools entered the soundscape. Metal touched wood. Wheels turned slowly. Shutters lifted. Each sound had purpose. There was no excess noise. Efficiency produced quiet. Stone-shaped sound. Walls reflected gently. Courtyards absorbed echoes. Sound traveled but did not linger. This acoustic balance mattered. It prevented overload. The city remained audible but manageable. Unlike modern cities, Rome had pauses. Sounds stopped. Moments of near silence returned. This rhythm allowed recovery. The nervous system benefited. There was time to breathe. The sounds of morning were predictable. They returned every day. Predictability reduces anxiety. When sound follows pattern, the mind relaxes. Romans did not analyze these sounds. They trusted them. Sound guided movement. You knew where you were by what you heard. Market sounds indicated direction. Quiet indicated residential space. This auditory mapping reduced confusion. Rome did not shout. It spoke. Its voice was steady, measured. This tone supported daily life. Sound did not demand attention. It accompanied action. This companionship mattered. It reduced loneliness without creating distraction. As the sounds of morning settled into their familiar rhythm, ancient Rome felt awake, not alert, not hurried, simply alive. Footsteps continued, voices flowed, tools worked, and within this gentle soundscape, the city carried its people forward, calmly, into the unfolding day. Work in ancient Rome did not begin with urgency. It began with readiness. There was no sharp signal to start, no command that pushed the city into motion. Instead, labor emerged naturally from routine. People began when the moment felt right. Craftsmen did not rush to their tools. They prepared first. Hands were cleaned, tools arranged, spaces checked. This preparation mattered. It allowed work to begin smoothly, without interruption. Efficiency came from calm. Shops did not open to announce competition. They opened to signal presence. A lifted shutter was enough. a table placed near the entrance, goods visible but not displayed aggressively. Customers arrived when they were ready. There was no pressure to attract attention. Roman labor did not separate sharply from life. Work happened where people lived. Homes and workshops often shared walls. This integration reduced tension. There was no commute, no sudden shift in identity. You were the same person at work as at home. Crafts required patience. Metalwork, leather, stone, textiles. Rushing produced mistakes. Mistakes wasted effort. Romans understood this. Slow, careful movement preserved quality. Quality preserved reputation. Work existed within social structure. Everyone knew their role. Apprentices observed. Masters guided. Instruction was calm. Repetition replaced pressure. Learning happened gradually. There was supervision, but not constant surveillance. Trust existed within known boundaries. This trust reduced stress. People worked because work was expected, not because they were constantly watched. Markets filled slowly. Vendors arranged goods. Customers approached without urgency. Prices were known. Negotiation was familiar. This familiarity reduced conflict. Predictability created calm exchange. Work involved physical movement, but it was paced. Frequent pauses were normal. The body adjusted naturally. This pacing prevented burnout. Work defined social identity, not ambition, not growth, stability. People did not seek to change roles constantly. Stability reduced anxiety. You knew where you belonged. Work sounds blended into the city. Hammers, voices, movement. No single sound dominated. The rhythm remained balanced. Starting work slowly protected the mind. Sudden intensity creates stress. Gradual engagement preserves focus. Romans began their labor prepared, not rushed. As work settled into its rhythm, ancient Rome felt purposeful, not hurried, not strained, simply active. Craftsmen worked with care. Shops welcomed without pressure. Labor supported life rather than consuming it. And within this measured beginning, the city continued its steady pace toward the day ahead. In ancient Rome, social order did not need explanation. It was felt. People did not ask where they belonged. They already knew. This knowledge shaped movement, speech, and expectation. Order existed without constant enforcement. Status revealed itself subtly, through clothing, through posture, through where one stood. No announcement was necessary. Everyone recognized the signals. This recognition reduced uncertainty. Uncertainty creates tension. Clarity creates calm. Roman rules were rarely spoken aloud in daily life. They were understood through repetition. Custom taught behavior. Habit reinforced it. This reduced conflict. When rules are predictable, they do not feel oppressive. People moved carefully around one another. They adjusted naturally. Respect followed familiarity. This awareness slowed interaction. Slowness reduced friction. Social order created stability. Stability allowed focus. Focus allowed productivity. This chain mattered. It preserved balance. Most Romans did not question the system daily. Questioning required energy. Acceptance conserved it. Life moved forward within known limits. The social order of ancient Rome did not shout. It whispered, and because it was familiar, it did not disturb. Within this quiet structure, people lived their lives knowing where they stood and feeling secure enough to continue. Mourning in ancient Rome was not about possibility. It was about continuity. Each new day resembled the one before it. This resemblance was not dull. It was reassuring. Repetition created trust. Romans did not expect surprise from the morning. They expected familiarity. The same streets, the same sounds, the same tasks. This predictability mattered. When life follows known patterns, the mind does not brace itself for threat. It relaxes. The Roman morning did not aim to inspire. It aimed to support. Support for work. Support for order. Support for endurance. Excitement was not necessary. Stability was enough. Repeating the same actions each morning grounded the individual. Waking, preparing, eating, stepping outside. These actions required little thought. This freed mental space. The mind conserved energy. Everyone participated in the same morning rhythm, not in the same way, but at the same time. This shared experience created quiet connection. No words were needed. Belonging was felt. There was no concept of a good or bad morning. Morning simply was. This absence of judgment reduced pressure. No expectation needed to be met. The day began naturally. Safety does not always come from protection. Sometimes it comes from familiarity. Knowing what comes next. Knowing what is expected. Knowing where you belong. The Roman morning provided this safety. As morning settled into routine, the city continued without pause. Life did not reset. It flowed. Each day carried the weight of the past and the calm promise of continuation. Morning in ancient Rome was not remarkable, and that was its strength. Within repetition, within routine, within the quiet unfolding of familiar hours, Romans found stability, and with stability, they found the calm needed to move forward, day after day. The Roman workday did not begin with a clock. It began with light. Time in ancient Rome was not divided into fixed hours as we know them today. Instead, the day was shaped by the movement of the sun. Morning, midday, and afternoon were felt rather than measured. This created a flexible rhythm, one that adapted naturally to the season, the weather, and the body. Roman hours changed length throughout the year. Summer hours were longer. Winter hours were shorter. This meant that work adjusted itself to nature. People did not fight the day. They followed it. This alignment reduced strain. The body worked when energy was available and slowed when it was not. Work did not start suddenly. There was no sharp transition from rest to effort. Morning tasks eased people into activity. Preparation came first. Movement followed. This gradual beginning protected focus. The mind was allowed to settle before engaging fully. For many Romans, work happened close to home. Shops opened onto streets. Workspaces shared walls with living spaces. There was no long separation between personal life and labor. This integration reduced psychological distance. You did not enter work. You continued life. Not everyone began work at the same moment. Some professions required early movement. Others waited until the streets filled. This staggered start prevented congestion. The city remained fluid. No single moment defined the beginning. Sunlight guided decisions. When it was strong, work increased. When it softened, effort adjusted. Midday heat often slowed activity. This pause was expected. Resisting heat was unnecessary. The day contained space for rest. Roman life was not tightly scheduled. Appointments were flexible. Delays were tolerated. This tolerance mattered. Rigid schedules create tension. Flexibility releases it. Work was necessary, but it was not glorified endlessly. Productivity was valued, but not at the cost of exhaustion. There was no expectation of constant growth. Stability mattered more than ambition. Everyone understood the rhythm. You did not need explanation. The sun was enough. This shared understanding reduced confusion. Confusion increases stress. Clarity calms. As the morning progressed, the Roman day found its form. Work settled into place. Movement became predictable. The city functioned smoothly. The Roman workday began without force. Guided by light, shaped by habit, and softened by flexibility. Time was not chased. It was lived. And within this living rhythm, work found its place naturally, as part of the day rather than its master. In ancient Rome, professions were not expressions of ambition. They were expressions of place. People did not ask what they wanted to become. They learned what they were meant to do. This clarity shaped daily life. It reduced uncertainty and guided routine. Roman professions were learned through observation and repetition. Children watched adults. Apprentices followed masters. Skills passed quietly from one generation to the next. There was no rush to specialize quickly. Learning took time. Time was allowed. Craftsmen formed the backbone of urban life. Metalworkers, potters, carpenters, leather workers, and weavers filled the streets with steady labor. Their work required patience. Precision mattered. Rushing damaged materials and reputation. This encouraged calm movement. Craftsmanship rewarded consistency, not speed. Many Romans worked as shopkeepers. Their shops were small, often attached to their homes. Daily exchange was personal. Customers were familiar. Prices were known. Negotiation existed, but it was routine rather than confrontational. This familiarity reduced tension. Trade felt predictable. Merchants moved goods rather than making them. They traveled between cities. They understood routes, seasons, and timing. Their work followed cycles. They waited when waiting was required. This patience reduced risk. Some Romans served the city directly. Clerks, messengers, maintenance workers. Their tasks supported order. They were not prominent figures, but they mattered. Their presence maintained continuity. Outside Rome, farming shaped daily life. Fields followed seasons. Work depended on weather. These rhythms influenced the city as well. Food arrived according to natural timing. No one expected instant delivery. Expectation followed reality. Roles were often divided by gender. Men worked publicly. Women worked domestically or in small trades. These roles were not debated daily. They were accepted. Acceptance conserved energy. A Roman's profession defined social identity. It shaped reputation, not ambition, not potential. Stability mattered more than change. This limited anxiety. You knew who you were. People were known by their work. Names carried meaning. Trust developed through consistency. This recognition reduced isolation. Roman professions did not compete for attention. They coexisted. Each role supported another. Work organized society quietly, without demanding constant justification. And within this structure, people moved through their days with clarity, purpose, and calm. Labor in ancient Rome existed within a clear hierarchy. This hierarchy was not hidden. It was understood. People moved within it daily, often without comment. Slaves, freedmen, and free citizens each occupied defined positions, and these positions shaped how work was done, how authority was exercised, and how the day unfolded. Slaves were present in nearly every aspect of Roman labor. They worked in homes, workshops, farms, mines, and public spaces. Their work was practical and continuous. Tasks were assigned rather than chosen. This lack of choice defined their experience. Yet, within this constraint, routine still mattered. Routine created predictability. Predictability softened hardship. Slaves were highly visible and socially invisible at the same time. They moved through streets carrying tools, water, or goods. They spoke when necessary. They worked without pause. Their presence was expected. Their acknowledgement was limited. This contradiction defined much of Roman labor life. Freedmen occupied a unique position. Once enslaved, they had been granted freedom. This freedom was real, but not complete. Freedmen could work independently. They could own property. But social memory remained. Their past shaped how they were treated. For freedmen, work carried special meaning. It demonstrated reliability. Consistency mattered. Success offered security. Failure threatened stability. This pressure encouraged diligence. Work became identity. Hierarchy did not produce constant tension. It was normalized. Roles were known. Expectations were clear. Clarity reduced confrontation. People interacted within understood limits. This predictability maintained order. Authority in Roman labor was not always spoken. It was expressed through repetition. Who gave instructions? Who followed them? Who observed? These patterns reinforced structure. Structure reduced chaos. Most labor relationships were practical rather than emotional. This distance limited conflict. Personal feelings were secondary to function. Function mattered more than expression. Roman labor hierarchy was not debated daily. It existed as part of life. Questioning it required energy. Most people conserved energy. They focused on survival and routine. The Roman city functioned because labor was organized. Slaves supported households. Freedmen sustained trade. Free citizens governed and managed. Each layer depended on the others. Labor hierarchy in ancient Rome was quiet, persistent, and deeply embedded. It shaped daily movement without constant enforcement. Within this structure, work continued, the city functioned, and life unfolded according to roles that were known, accepted, and rarely questioned. In ancient Rome, social class shaped daily interaction quietly. It was rarely discussed, yet always present. People did not ask who held status. They recognized it instinctively. This recognition guided behavior. Patricians and plebeians shared the same streets. They walked the same paths. They heard the same sounds. Yet their experiences differed. Patricians moved with confidence. Their presence carried expectation. Plebeians moved with awareness. They adjusted naturally. This adjustment reduced friction. Social distance did not require hostility. It required acknowledgement. Who spoke first? Who waited? Who stepped aside? These small gestures maintained order. No words were needed. Respect followed familiarity, not emotion. People behaved according to custom. Custom replaced confrontation. This consistency created predictability. Predictability calmed interaction. Public space belonged to all, but roles remained distinct. Markets, streets, and forums hosted every class. Each moved within understood limits. This balance preserved flow. Most interactions followed habit. There was little negotiation of behavior. Expectations were known. Knowing what was expected reduced anxiety. Social class in ancient Rome shaped daily interaction without constant reminder. It guided movement quietly. It defined distance gently. And within this unspoken structure, people shared space, maintained order, and continued their lives with minimal conflict. In ancient Rome, work was not a ladder to climb. It was a place to stand. People did not measure themselves by how far they could rise, but by how well they fulfilled the role already given to them. This distinction shaped Roman society deeply. It reduced restlessness. It offered clarity. A Roman was known by what they did. The baker baked. The smith worked metal. The merchant traded goods. These roles were not temporary. They were enduring. Identity followed function, not aspiration. This connection simplified life. When identity is stable, the mind does not constantly search for change. Romans did not compare themselves endlessly to others. Comparison existed, but within narrow bounds. You compared yourself to those in similar roles. This limited scope mattered. It reduced envy. It reduced pressure. Life was not a race. Ambition existed, but quietly. A craftsman might aim to improve skill. A shopkeeper might seek steady customers. But ambition did not dominate identity. There was no expectation to reinvent oneself. Stability mattered more than growth. This mindset preserved emotional balance. Work was not meant to express individuality. It was meant to contribute. Contribution gave meaning. Meaning reduced anxiety. When your role supports the whole, you feel needed. This feeling grounds the individual. Many professions passed through families. Children learned by watching. They did not choose from endless options. Options were limited. Limitations reduced overwhelm. Life felt navigable. Predictable workdays created comfort. You knew what the day required. Surprises were few. Routine conserved mental energy. Energy conserved supports rest. Respect followed consistency, not novelty. Those who performed their role reliably earned trust. Trust created social stability. Acceptance did not mean resignation. It meant alignment. You worked within your place without constant resistance. Resistance drains energy. Alignment restores it. In ancient Rome, work was not a dream to chase. It was a role to inhabit. This understanding reduced pressure. It allowed people to live within clear boundaries, to contribute steadily, and to find calm in knowing who they were and what was expected of them. Within this stability, life moved forward without constant striving, and rest came more easily. Markets in ancient Rome were not chaotic places. They were familiar. People returned to the same vendors, the same stalls, the same routes. This familiarity shaped the rhythm of economic life. Trade was not hurried. It followed habit. Markets appeared regularly. They were expected. Their presence anchored the day. People planned around them. Food arrived when it was meant to arrive. Goods circulated predictably. Predictability reduced uncertainty. Uncertainty creates anxiety. Roman trade did not rely on aggressive persuasion. Vendors did not shout constantly. They displayed goods calmly. Customers approached when ready. Negotiation existed, but it was restrained. Most prices were understood. This reduced conflict. Trade felt cooperative rather than competitive. Trust mattered. Customers returned to familiar faces. Vendors valued consistency. Reputation carried weight. This trust simplified exchange. Fewer words were needed. Transactions flowed smoothly. Goods moved through Rome steadily. Food from nearby farms, crafts from workshops, imports from distant regions. Movement followed routes shaped by experience. No one expected immediacy. Waiting was normal. This patience reduced frustration. Markets shaped the pace of the day. Morning brought preparation. Midday slowed activity. Afternoon allowed final exchanges. This rhythm aligned with the sun. Work adjusted naturally. Markets were social spaces. People greeted one another. Brief conversations occurred. News traveled quietly. These interactions connected the community. Connection reduced isolation. Choice existed, but within limits. Vendors sold known goods. Variety was modest. This limited decision-making. Limited decisions reducing fatigue. Money was tangible. Coins passed hand to hand. Their weight was felt. This physicality grounded exchange. Trade felt real, not abstract. Markets stabilized Roman life. They connected producer and consumer, city and countryside, individual and community. This connection preserved balance. Markets in ancient Rome were not engines of pressure. They were spaces of continuity. Trade followed known paths. Exchange supported life quietly. And within this steady economic rhythm, the city sustained itself calmly, day after day. Public spaces in ancient Rome were not places of constant action. They were places of presence. People came not always to do something, but simply to be there. This presence shaped civic life gently, without pressure. The Forum was the center of public life, but it was not always crowded. At many moments it felt open, spacious. People passed through slowly. Some stopped, some observed. This openness mattered. It allowed space for thought. Not everyone participated actively in civic affairs. Many simply witnessed them. Listening was enough. Observation counted. This passive participation reduced strain. You did not need to act to belong. Public spaces belonged to everyone. Patricians, plebeians, freedmen. They occupied the same ground, but they used it differently. Distance was maintained naturally. This balance prevented conflict. People moved through public spaces without urgency. Some walked with purpose. Others wandered. This lack of strict direction softened interaction. There was room to pause. Stone buildings shaped sound. They absorbed noise. Shadows created rest for the eyes. The environment supported stillness. This mattered psychologically. The space calmed the body. Civic activity existed constantly, but it did not demand attention. It formed a background to daily life. This background provided stability. You knew the city functioned, even when you were not involved. News traveled quietly, through conversation, through presence. There was no urgency. Information arrived when it arrived. This reduced pressure. You did not need to perform to belong. Simply being present was enough. This acceptance mattered. It allowed rest even in public. Public spaces in ancient Rome were not loud centers of action. They were steady anchors. They held the city together quietly. Within these shared spaces, life unfolded calmly, allowing individuals to feel connected without being overwhelmed. As the sun reached its highest point, ancient Rome slowed. This pause was not planned. It was expected. The heat guided behavior. Movement softened. Voices lowered. Work adjusted naturally. Midday was not a time for intensity. It was a time for restraint. People sought shade. Tasks became lighter. Effort conserved energy rather than spent it. This acceptance of rest mattered. Resisting heat only increased exhaustion. The city did not stop completely. It softened. Shops remained open, but activity reduced. Streets felt quieter. The air felt heavier. Stillness became part of the rhythm. This pause protected the body. It allowed recovery. It prevented fatigue. The Roman day contained space for rest without guilt. Rest was not weakness. It was balance. As the sun began to move, life gradually returned. The pause ended quietly, without announcement. The day continued. Life in ancient Rome moved with structure, but without urgency. Order did not push, it guided. People knew what to do and when to do it. This knowledge reduced haste. Daily routines were clear. Work followed light. Rest followed heat. Movement followed habit. Because the structure was familiar, there was no need to rush. Rushing often comes from uncertainty. Certainty brings calm. The city functioned smoothly, not because people hurried, but because they understood the rhythm. Everyone adjusted naturally. No one needed constant reminders. Urgency was reserved for true necessity. Most of life unfolded steadily. This steadiness protected the mind. It allowed attention without tension. Order did not feel restrictive. It felt supportive. It held life in place gently. In ancient Rome, order existed quietly. It did not demand speed. It allowed life to move forward at a human pace. Within this calm structure, the day remained balanced. and the city continued without strain. The Roman workday was not designed to impress. It was designed to hold life together. Work did not dominate the day, and it did not disappear into the background. It occupied its place calmly. This balance mattered. Work provided structure. It gave shape to time. Morning had purpose. Midday allowed rest. Afternoon returned gently to activity. This rhythm prevented exhaustion. The day was not a test to survive. It was a path to follow. Roman life valued steadiness more than intensity. Consistency was trusted. Sudden change was avoided. This trust in routine reduced anxiety. When tomorrow looks like today, the mind can rest. A Roman rarely asked what the day would bring. They already knew. This knowledge offered quiet confidence. Uncertainty creates tension. Familiarity dissolves it. Work supported life. It did not consume identity completely. People were workers, but also family members, neighbors, citizens. This balance preserved humanity. As the workday continued, life unfolded without pressure. Tasks were completed. Energy was managed. The city remained functional. The Roman workday offered stability, not excitement, not ambition, but reassurance. Within routine, within order, within predictable rhythm, people found the calm necessary to continue. And with that calm, the day moved gently toward its next phase. Food in ancient Rome was not primarily about pleasure. It was about continuation. Eating sustained the body, supported work, and preserved balance. Meals followed routine, not desire. This understanding shaped Roman daily life deeply and quietly. Romans did not romanticize food in daily life. Food was practical. It provided energy. It marked time. It followed rhythm. Meals structured the day gently, without excess or urgency. This reduced anxiety around eating and reinforced stability. Romans typically recognized three main eating moments: ientaculum, the morning meal; prandium, the midday meal; cena, the evening meal. Each had a clear role. None were meant to overwhelm the body. Breakfast was light, often bread, sometimes fruit, cheese, or olives. It was eaten quickly and without ceremony. The goal was readiness, not satisfaction. This prevented heaviness early in the day and supported steady energy. The midday meal was modest. It acknowledged the body's need to pause. Food was simple, often eaten standing or briefly seated. Soups, bread, leftovers. The meal aligned with the midday slowdown caused by heat. Eating lightly prevented exhaustion. The evening meal was the most substantial, but even then, excess was discouraged for most people. Food was shared with family. Conversation was calm. Eating marked the transition from labor to rest. For wealthier Romans, cena could become elaborate. But this was not the norm. For most, it remained measured. Bread formed the foundation. Grains sustained the population. Olive oil provided fat and flavor. Vegetables were common. Legumes added protein. Meat was occasional. Fish varied by location. This diet supported endurance rather than indulgence. Cooking happened daily, often by women or slaves. Methods were simple: boiling, baking, roasting. Spices existed but were not constant. Food was prepared to nourish, not impress. Class influenced variety, not structure. The wealthy ate more options. The poor ate fewer. But timing remained similar. Routine unified society. This shared rhythm mattered. Romans lived with awareness of scarcity. Food was respected. Waste was discouraged. This awareness shaped behavior. Gratitude was practical, not ceremonial. Simple meals reduce decision fatigue. Romans benefited from this unknowingly. Eating did not create stress. There was little choice, little comparison. Food did its job quietly. Meals anchored the day. They signaled transitions. They offered pause. They prepared the body for rest. This anchoring effect supported emotional regulation. In ancient Rome, food was not entertainment. It was support. It sustained the body. It shaped time. It reinforced routine. And within this quiet nourishment, Romans found the strength to continue their lives steadily, day after day, without excess, without urgency, and without strain. Leisure in ancient Rome was not an escape from life. It was a continuation of it. Rest did not arrive suddenly. Relaxation did not require permission. It emerged naturally as work softened and the day leaned toward evening. Romans did not perform leisure. They did not seek stimulation. There was no pressure to be entertained. Leisure existed quietly, woven into the structure of the day. This mattered deeply. When leisure does not demand excitement, the mind is allowed to rest. Roman baths are often imagined as loud or indulgent. In reality, daily visits were usually calm. People washed, they sat, they talked softly. Warm water loosened the body. Cold water refreshed it. The sequence followed rhythm, not indulgence. Baths restored balance rather than overstimulating the senses. Conversation was a form of leisure, not debate, not argument. Simple exchange. News shared quietly. Observations offered calmly. People did not rush to speak. Listening mattered. This slowed interaction created emotional ease. Games existed, but they were simple. Dice, board games, light physical play. These activities did not dominate the day. They filled small spaces of time. Pleasure was modest. This moderation preserved calm. Music was present, but rarely overwhelming. Small instruments, soft voices. Music accompanied life rather than commanding attention. It blended into the environment. Sound remained gentle. Walking itself was leisure, not for exercise, not for progress, simply movement. Streets offered familiarity. Walking grounded the body and slowed thought. Gardens, courtyards, and shaded spaces offered quiet refuge. Nature softened stone. Plants cooled the air. These spaces were used not for display, but for rest. Leisure restored what work spent: energy, focus, patience. It prepared the body for the evening. This preparation was essential. Rest was not wasted time. It was necessary time. Even in leisure, social order remained. Distance was respected. roles were understood. This clarity prevented tension. Relaxation did not erase structure. It softened it. Romans did not feel guilty for resting. Rest followed effort naturally. There was no need to justify it. This acceptance reduced mental strain. Leisure felt quiet, safe, predictable. It did not aim to elevate emotion. It aimed to settle it. This settling mattered as the day moved forward. In ancient Rome, leisure was not loud. It did not demand attention. It offered space, space to breathe, space to connect, space to slow down. And within this quiet pleasure, the Roman day gently released its tension, preparing the body and the mind for the calm that followed. Family life in ancient Rome was not defined by emotion alone. It was defined by structure. Within the household, roles were clear, expectations were known, and daily life followed patterns that offered stability rather than constant expression. This structure shaped how Romans related to one another, quietly and continuously. The Roman family was not only a private group, it was a social unit. A household included parents, children, extended relatives, slaves, and sometimes freedmen. All lived under one roof or authority. This collective living reduced isolation. Life was shared. At the center stood the paterfamilias. He held a legal authority over the household. This authority was not exercised constantly. It existed as a foundation. Its presence shaped behavior without frequent enforcement. Clarity reduced conflict. Women managed the internal life of the home. They organized daily routines. They oversaw food preparation. They cared for children. Their influence was constant, though often informal. Domestic stability depended on them. This responsibility carried weight. Marriage was practical. Love could exist, but duty mattered more. Marriage ensured continuity. Children ensured lineage. This understanding reduced romantic pressure. Expectations were realistic. Children learned by watching. They absorbed roles early. Obedience was taught gently through repetition. Education happened at home before formal learning. This early structure shaped identity. Affection existed, but it was restrained. Public displays were rare. Emotion was expressed through care, not words. This restraint maintained dignity. Slaves were part of domestic life. They performed daily tasks. They were present in intimate spaces. This presence shaped household rhythm. Their labor supported stability. Mornings followed routine. Evenings softened. Meals gathered members together briefly. Conversation was calm. Silence was accepted. The home offered refuge from public life. Gender roles were not questioned daily. Acceptance reduced mental strain. People lived within known boundaries. Boundaries create safety. Family life grounded the individual. It offered belonging. It offered predictability. Even when imperfect, it provided structure. Family life in ancient Rome was not dramatic. It was steady. Within routine, roles, and shared space, Romans found continuity. This continuity supported emotional balance, and as the day moved toward evening, the household became the quiet center where life slowed. Voices softened, and rest began to take shape. In ancient Rome, religion was not something people stepped into. It was something they lived within. Faith did not interrupt daily life. It accompanied it. There was no sharp division between the sacred and the ordinary. Both existed together, quietly shaping thought, behavior, and emotion. Roman religion did not rely on dramatic moments. It did not demand constant attention. Instead, it existed as a steady background presence. People did not wake each day asking what they believed. Belief was assumed. This assumption reduced mental effort. When belief is not questioned constantly, it becomes stabilizing rather than exhausting. Roman gods were not distant. They were near. They occupied streets, homes, fields, and thresholds. This closeness mattered. It reduced fear. The divine was not unreachable. It was woven into the world. Religion in Rome was learned through repetition. Children observed adults. Rituals were repeated daily. Words, gestures, and habits became familiar. Familiarity reduces anxiety. What is known does not overwhelm. Romans did not pursue emotional intensity through faith. There was no expectation of constant devotion. Belief did not need to be proven. It simply existed. This reduced pressure. Pressure often disrupts rest. Roman faith supported calm. Religion reinforced order, not chaos. It explained why things happened. It gave meaning to cycles, day and night, life and death, fortune and loss. Meaning reduces uncertainty. Uncertainty unsettles the mind. Simple acts carried religious weight. Lighting a lamp, crossing a doorway, beginning a journey. These moments did not require ceremony. Their repetition gave them meaning. Life itself became ritual. Belief helped regulate emotion. Fear softened. Loss found explanation. Joy felt shared. Religion did not remove hardship. It framed it. Framing allows acceptance. Acceptance brings calm. Roman religion was not focused on constant moral evaluation. It was less about sin, more about balance. This distinction mattered. The mind was not constantly monitored. Guilt was limited. Rest was easier. Shared belief created shared understanding. This understanding connected individuals. It reduced isolation. You were never entirely alone. The gods were present. This presence offered reassurance. In ancient Rome, religion did not demand attention. It offered presence. It did not shout. It whispered. Within this quiet belief, Romans moved through their days supported by a sense of order, continuity, and calm. Faith was not something they practiced occasionally. It was something they lived with, gently, every day. In ancient Rome, the home was not only a place of shelter, it was a sacred space. Within its walls lived not just family members, but also the household gods, the Lares and the Penates. These deities were not distant or powerful in a dramatic sense. They were protective, familiar, and quietly present. The Lares were guardians. They protected the home, the family, and the boundaries of domestic life. They were associated with ancestors, continuity, and place. Their presence reminded Romans that the home was part of a longer story. not isolated, not temporary, but connected across generations. The Penates were linked to food and sustenance. They guarded the pantry, the hearth, and the family's survival. Every meal carried their presence. This association mattered deeply. Food was never taken for granted. Nourishment was seen as something protected, not guaranteed. At the center of the Roman home was the hearth. Fire warmed, fire cooked, fire illuminated. But it also symbolized continuity. The hearth was never just practical, it was sacred. To tend the fire was to maintain life itself. Many homes contained small shrines, simple niches, small figurines, nothing elaborate. These shrines did not dominate the home. They blended into daily life. Faith did not interrupt routine. It accompanied it. Interaction with the household gods was brief. A gesture, a word, a moment. These acts were not emotional displays. They were habits. Habit creates calm. When belief becomes routine, it supports rather than overwhelms. The household gods offered reassurance. They did not promise perfection. They promised presence. Presence matters. It reduces fear. It offers emotional grounding. Children learned belief by watching. No instruction was required. Rituals repeated themselves naturally. This repetition embedded faith quietly. Faith became familiar, not frightening. Household religion stabilized daily life. It anchored the individual. It created a sense of belonging. Even in uncertainty, the home remained protected. The Lares and Penates did not demand devotion. They offered continuity. Within the Roman home, faith lived quietly. It protected. It grounded. It reassured. And within this sacred domestic space, life felt held, supported, and safe. In ancient Rome, religious life was not defined by large ceremonies. It was shaped by small rituals. These rituals did not interrupt the day. They blended into it. Their power came not from scale, but from repetition. Roman rituals were brief, often silent, sometimes no more than a gesture, a pause before leaving the house, a word spoken softly, a small offering placed carefully. These acts did not demand attention. They provided grounding. Repetition creates familiarity. Familiarity creates comfort. Roman rituals repeated themselves day after day. This repetition calmed the mind. When actions are known, they do not create stress. They create reassurance. Rituals did not aim to provoke emotion. There was no expectation of awe or fear. Emotion was secondary to consistency. This distinction mattered. High emotional intensity can disturb rest. Roman rituals supported balance. Daily actions carried ritual meaning. Lighting a lamp, beginning a meal, crossing a threshold. These moments became sacred through repetition. Life itself was ritualized gently. Grand ceremonies existed, but they were rare. They were not the foundation of belief. Most faith lived in the ordinary. This absence of spectacle reduced pressure. Faith did not overwhelm the senses. Rituals offered predictability. Predictability reduces anxiety. In uncertain times, familiar acts reassured. You knew what to do. You knew when to do it. This knowledge calmed the nervous system. Participation did not require performance. You did not need to speak loudly. You did not need to be seen. Presence was enough. This inclusivity mattered. Shared rituals created shared rhythm. Everyone knew the gestures. Everyone recognized the moments. This shared understanding strengthened social bonds. Belief was reinforced through habit. You did not analyze belief daily. You practiced it. Practice stabilized belief. Roman religious life rested in the small, in gestures repeated quietly, in habits followed without thought. These rituals did not command attention. They offered continuity, and within this continuity, faith became a steady companion, guiding life gently without disturbance toward calm and rest. In ancient Rome, temples were not places people entered every day, yet they were always there. They stood quietly within the city, shaping space and awareness without demanding attention. Their role was less about constant worship and more about presence. Roman temples blended into daily life. They rose at crossroads, near forums, on hills, and along main streets. People passed them regularly, often without stopping. This familiarity mattered. The sacred did not feel distant. It felt integrated. Many Romans saw temples more often than they entered them. A glance was enough, a moment of acknowledgement. This was not neglect. It was relationship. The gods were recognized without interruption. Temples were built with balance, symmetry, proportion. Stone created solidity. Columns created rhythm. This architecture affected the mind. Order calms perception. Calm perception supports rest. Temples helped people navigate the city. They served as reference points, meeting places, landmarks. This orientation reduced confusion. Knowing where you are reduces anxiety. When people entered temples, it was often briefly. A small offering, a silent moment, no urgency, no spectacle. Faith did not need performance. Temples represented shared belief, but they did not demand participation. You could belong without entering. This openness mattered. It reduced social pressure. The presence of temples reminded Romans that life had order, that the world was structured. This reminder was gentle. It did not intrude. Intrusion creates tension. Gentle presence creates reassurance. Temples connected past, present, and future. They stood longer than individual lives. This continuity offered comfort. Life felt part of something enduring. Temples were often quiet spaces. Silence itself carried meaning. It allowed reflection. It softened thought. Silence prepares the mind for rest. Roman temples did not call loudly. They waited. They stood as quiet landmarks, offering orientation, continuity, and calm. Within their silent presence, Romans moved through their days reassured that order existed, even when they did not stop to look. In ancient Rome, signs were not feared. They were noticed. Omens did not exist to frighten the people, but to remind them that the world followed patterns, meanings, and an underlying order. This belief shaped how Romans approached uncertainty. Romans believed the world spoke softly, through nature, through animals, through chance events. These signs were not dramatic messages. They were gentle indications. Attention mattered more than reaction. When signs appeared, Romans did not rush to panic. Interpretation was calm, measured, guided by tradition. This restraint mattered. Fear disturbs balance. Calm interpretation preserves it. Augurs and priests existed. They studied patterns. They interpreted signs. But daily life did not depend constantly on them. Most people lived without seeking signs actively. This distance reduced anxiety. Signs were not commands. They did not dictate every action. They offered confirmation or caution. This distinction mattered. Life was still lived freely within structure. Birds flying, weather shifting, dreams appearing. These were seen as meaningful but not threatening. Meaning creates comfort. Randomness creates unease. Roman belief softened randomness. Trust replaced fear. Trust that the gods maintained balance. Trust that order existed beyond individual control. This trust reduced mental strain. You did not need to manage everything. Signs and emotional regulation. Belief in signs helped regulate emotion. Unexpected events felt explainable. Explanation reduces fear. Fear disrupts rest. Not every event required meaning. This limit mattered. Constant interpretation would exhaust the mind. Roman belief allowed space. Major decisions sometimes acknowledged signs. Small decisions did not. Life remained practical. This balance preserved normalcy. In ancient Rome, signs did not rule life. They supported it. They reminded people that the world was not chaotic, that order existed quietly beneath events. And within this trust in order, Romans found reassurance, acceptance, and calm enough to move forward without fear. In ancient Rome, religion played a quiet psychological role. It did not eliminate fear. It softened it. Faith helped people live with uncertainty without being consumed by it. This function mattered deeply in a world where much was unpredictable. Life in ancient Rome involved risk, illness, weather, loss, sudden change. Many of these events lay beyond individual control. Religion provided a framework to hold this uncertainty. When events felt a part of a larger order, they felt less overwhelming. Religion acted as a container for emotion. Fear did not disappear, but it had a place to rest. Belief offered explanation. Explanation reduces anxiety. When the mind can place fear somewhere, it relaxes. Roman gods were not perfect beings. They were familiar, human-like. This familiarity mattered. People related to them naturally. They were not distant judges. They were part of the world. This reduced emotional distance. Small rituals reset emotional balance. A gesture, a pause, a repeated act. These moments allowed the mind to settle. Ritual slows thought. Slower thought reduces emotional intensity. Roman religion emphasized acceptance more than control. You did not need to fix everything. You did not need to understand everything. Some things were simply entrusted to the gods. This surrender reduced mental load. Trying to control everything exhausts the mind. Trust releases it. Religion prevented constant catastrophic thinking. Not every negative event meant disaster. Not every sign meant danger. This moderation protected emotional stability. Shared belief created shared emotional language. People were not alone in their fears. Community belief normalized experience. Normalization calms the nervous system. Religion did not demand emotional highs. It allowed emotional neutrality. Neutrality supports rest. Excitement disrupts sleep. Calm belief supports it. Faith accompanied the day's rhythm. Morning reassurance, midday balance, evening release. Religion followed the same gentle flow as life. In ancient Rome, religion did not intensify emotion. It regulated it. It softened fear. It held uncertainty. And within this quiet emotional support, Romans moved through life with steadiness, acceptance, and a calm that prepared the mind for rest. In ancient Rome, death was not hidden from daily life. It was present, not dramatized, not denied, but quietly acknowledged. People encountered death through family, neighbors, rituals, and memory. This familiarity shaped acceptance rather than fear. Romans did not obsess over the moment of death. They focused on continuity, what remained after. The afterlife was not imagined as a dramatic judgment. It was a shadowed continuation, a resting place among ancestors. This belief reduced anxiety. Fear thrives in uncertainty. Roman belief offered shape, not terror. Graves lined roads. Names were remembered. Memory mattered more than punishment or reward. Death was part of order. And because it was ordered, it was bearable. Religion in Rome stabilized life. It did not elevate it emotionally. It held it steady. Belief provided explanation when logic failed. It softened chaos by placing it within a larger structure. This reduced emotional fluctuation. People trusted that life followed rules beyond their control. This trust mattered. It removed the burden of constant interpretation. Faith was not something Romans reached for in crisis alone. It was always present, quietly reinforcing balance. Stability does not excite the mind. It calms it. As daylight softened, rituals shifted. Evening rituals were not elaborate. They were subtle. A lamp lit, a gesture repeated, a moment acknowledged. These acts signaled release. The day did not end abruptly. It closed. Religion helped mark this closure. It allowed effort to be set down. The mind recognized that activity was complete. Transition is essential for rest. Without transition, tension remains. Roman ritual provided this bridge. Roman religion was not built on fear. It was built on familiarity. Gods were near, not threatening. Rituals were known, not demanding. Belief was steady, not intense. This quality made Roman faith deeply compatible with rest. Fear disrupts sleep. Quiet belief supports it. The gods did not watch constantly. They accompanied. And in this companionship, Romans found reassurance. Faith did not command attention. It allowed peace. As the sun began to lower, ancient Rome changed its pace. The evening did not arrive suddenly. It unfolded. Light softened. Shadows lengthened. Voices lowered. The city did not resist this transition. It accepted it. Sunset in Rome was not merely visual. It was sensory. Warm tones replaced brightness. Stone reflected softer colors. The intensity of the day released its grip. This change signaled permission to slow down. The body responds naturally to light. Romans followed this response intuitively. By evening, work loosened. Tasks ended naturally. There was no urgency to complete everything. Tomorrow existed. This belief mattered. When tomorrow is trusted, the mind can rest. Tools were set aside. Shops closed gently. Effort was released without resistance. The streets did not empty instantly. Movement thinned gradually. Footsteps softened. Conversation shortened. People returned home. This return was not rushed. Home awaited. Evening belonged to the household. The home gathered its members again, not for discussion, not for intensity, but for presence. Meals were shared calmly. Silence was accepted. The day no longer demanded output. As darkness approached, lamps were lit. Their light was small, contained. This limited illumination mattered. It did not stimulate, it soothed. The eyes adjusted. The mind followed. Small rituals marked the evening. A gesture at the hearth, a word spoken quietly. These acts did not add responsibility. They removed it. They signaled closure. Sound changed character, less movement, more stillness. Distant voices faded. Animals settled. The city breathed slower. This quiet supported introspection. Evening allowed emotion to soften. Tensions dissolved. Concerns lost sharpness. Nothing demanded immediate response. This emotional release prepared the mind for rest. Evening was not filled with stimulation. No lights, no performances. Rest did not require distraction. Stillness was enough. As darkness settled, the Roman day did not end dramatically. It let go. Life did not shut down. It slowed. This slowing was intentional. It protected rest. Evening in ancient Rome was not a pause between days. It was a transition, from effort to stillness, from activity to rest, from light to shadow. Within this gentle slowing, the body relaxed, the mind quieted, and the city prepared itself for the calm embrace of night. Night in ancient Rome arrived gently, guided by candlelight. The flame did not compete with darkness, it cooperated with it. Candlelight was small by design. It illuminated just enough. This limitation mattered. Bright light stimulates the mind. Soft light calms it. Romans understood this intuitively. A candle created a circle of safety. Beyond it, shadows rested quietly. Nothing demanded attention. This balance allowed the eyes to relax. When the eyes relax, the mind follows. Flames flickered unpredictably, yet calmly. Their movement required no interpretation. Watching a candle did not provoke thought. It invited stillness. The body slowed. Breath deepened. Candlelight also shaped time. As wax melted, time passed visibly. This slow passage reassured the mind. Nothing rushed. In homes, lamps were placed carefully. Corners softened. Faces appeared gentle. The night felt held, not empty. Darkness was not feared. It was accepted as natural. The candle did not chase it away. It simply accompanied it. As the flame burned lower, the day released its final grip. The city no longer asked for attention. Candlelight signaled rest. Sleep in ancient Rome followed nature, not schedules. There were no clocks to obey, only fatigue, only darkness. This alignment mattered deeply. People slept when the body asked, not when a system demanded. Sleep arrived gradually. Eyes grew heavy. Thought slowed. Early sleep, waking briefly. Then rest again. This pattern was normal. It was not judged. Judgment disrupts rest. Acceptance restores it. Beds were simple. Comfort came from familiarity, not luxury. The body learned where to rest. Noise diminished naturally. The city supported sleep by quieting. Nothing pulled attention outward. Sleep was not forced. It was allowed. This allowance reduced anxiety around rest. The body trusted night. Night returned daily. Trust makes sleep easier. Night carried uncertainty. Romans did not deny this, but fear was moderated. Darkness was known, experienced daily. What is familiar loses power. People stayed close to home. Doors were secured. Rituals completed. Preparation calmed the mind. Fears were acknowledged, not magnified. Stories softened fear into understanding. The night did not threaten. It simply existed. This moderation mattered. Fear grows in exaggeration. Calm grows in restraint. Night passed as it always had. Morning returned. This certainty reduced fear. Death in Roman thought was not sensationalized. It was part of order. Life ended. Memory continued. This framing mattered. Death did not interrupt meaning. It completed it. The afterlife was quiet, not dramatic. This quietness reduced fear. Graves were near roads. Names remembered. Death remained present but gentle. Acceptance freed the mind from constant fear. Fear disturbs sleep. Acceptance supports it. Romans rested. Knowing life followed cycles. Endings did not threaten continuity. Now, nothing is required. The day has ended. Effort has been set down. Breath slows. Thought softens. The city sleeps. Stone rests. Streets are empty. Lights fade. Nothing waits for you now. You are safe. The night holds gently. Time moves quietly. There is nothing to solve, nothing to prepare. Sleep arrives without force. You do not need to follow it. It finds you. And as the candle dims, as the city rests, as the world grows still, you drift softly, without effort, into rest.